Let's take a few moments this morning to continue in our Jesus Storybook reading through the various narratives of Scripture from Old Testament to New Testament that tell us of the glory, the greatness, and the excellencies of Jesus Christ. And this is a story that I think will probably be familiar to many, entitled Filled Full. There were once 5,000 tired and hungry and probably grumpy people sitting on a hillside wanting their dinner. How many people were there? 5,000 people. They'd come to hear Jesus that day. They came, listen to this, before breakfast, stayed all morning, all afternoon, and way past dinner. No one really meant to be there that long, but that's how it was listening to Jesus. It was almost like time didn't exist. People could listen to Jesus for hours and hours, and on this particular day, that's exactly what they did. But because they'd not been planning to stay there that long, they did not bring enough food to eat. And they couldn't just go and buy themselves a burger and fries to go because they were in the middle of nowhere. There were no shops or restaurants, and that kind of food hadn't been invented yet. Fast food, that is. What would they do? Jesus' friend had an idea. Well, let's just send everybody home for dinner. Just go on, get out of here. Go home and feed your hungry bellies. They don't need to go, Jesus said. You can give them something to eat. Now imagine you're that person. Jesus says you can give them something to eat. These 5,000 hungry people, grumpy people, right? One or two grumpy people is enough to ruin your day. You got 5,000 of them. And you can give them something to eat. What do you think? A little much, isn't it? Did Jesus want them to travel all the way down to town and buy enough food for 5,000 people? Well, Jesus' friends began to panic. We don't have enough money for all this. Well, what food do you have? Jesus asked. Go and see what we have. Well, there was a little boy in the crowd, probably about a little bit older than you guys. And he had brought a lunch that his mother had made for him that morning. His little lunchbox. And he had looked, and inside he had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, it wasn't much. I mean, it was for him. He's a little boy. Certainly couldn't feed 5,000 people with just that. But I have some, he said to the people. Jesus' friends laughed when they saw his little lunch. That's not nearly enough for all these people. But little did they know, Jesus knew it didn't matter how much or how little the little boy had, because God could take it and make it enough. More than enough. Jesus said, well, bring me what the little boy has. And so the little boy gave Jesus his lunch. I mean, think about that little boy. That's his lunch. That was for him. He gave it to Jesus. Jesus winked at the little boy and whispered in his ear, watch this. How in the world will Jesus feed everyone with just this little bread and a couple fish? Jesus' friends thought it was impossible. But here's the thing. Jesus knew the one who made all the fish in the oceans. And Jesus knew the one who in the very beginning had made everything out of nothing at all. It was Him. Jesus was that person. How hard would it be for somebody who made all the fish and all the bread, how hard would it be for that person who made it all out of nothing to take these little fish and bread and turn it into enough food? Would it be hard at all? Not at all. You see Jesus there winking at the little boy. Jesus took the little boy's lunch, looked up to heaven, and thanked his Father. And then Jesus gave the little lunch back to his friends. And as Jesus' friends started to hand out the food, you're never going to guess what happened. It was the strangest thing. No matter how much they broke off and gave to somebody, there was always a little more. And there was always a little bit more. And there's always a little bit more. And it's still coming. More and more and more. Enough for they went through all 5,000 people. And guess what? They all got some. Everyone ate as much as they wanted. Second helpings, third helpings, even fourths until they were full. And still there were leftovers. This is what we call a miracle in the Bible. Well, Jesus did many miracles like this. Things people thought couldn't happen. Things that weren't natural. But it was the most natural thing in all the world. It's what God had been doing from the very beginning, of course. Taking nothing, right? In the beginning, Genesis 1, there was nothing and making it everything. Taking the emptiness and filling up. Taking the darkness and making it light. Taking the dead in our hearts, our rebellion, our sin, and making it life.